we are one of the now only independent VMS companies. If you looked at that trifecta of technologies, we do not sell cashless devices, and we don't sell kiosk devices. Yep. So we sell the VMS. We sell the core fundamental business software to the unattended retail operator. Support has, from the very beginning, been fundamental to who Gimme is. In a lot of ways, it is actually the thing that our customers may talk about the most.
Coffee, micro markets and vending dreams. Break room legends and winning teams. Neil drops gold from behind the scenes. Hey guys, welcome to the Neil from New Zealand show. I've got an exciting guest you'll meet here shortly. But hey, two things real quick. One is, I love investing my time and energy into two things. One is positive people, especially as it relates to this industry. And secondly, just entrepreneurial journeys in general. And that is what today's show is all about. You're going to be hearing from Evan Jarecki from Gimme, a VMS solution. What a cool guy, awesome energy. Can't wait for you to meet him and hear about his 10-year journey to success. Evan, welcome to the show.
So glad to be here. Neil, thanks for having me.
Oh, Evan, seriously, thank you for being on the show. Hey, Evan, one of the things I love about America is entrepreneurship, the ability just to think of an idea and get after it. And that's exactly what you've done, right?
That's right. Yeah, I think when I was, I would say I learned about entrepreneurship maybe later, still young, but later than some peers. And I'm so glad that I did because, you know, I didn't have a good definition for it before until about college age.
Yep, exactly. And now you're in control of your own destiny, right?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah. It feels good too.
Yeah, good. Hey, so real quick, we're obviously in the same industry. We're building technologies across the same industry. Give us an overview of Gimme and what you guys actually do for operators right now.
Absolutely. So Gimme we're an all-in-one unattended retail platform, building software and hardware to help vending operators achieve operational excellence. And we do that through primarily two major ways. One is our VMS platform, which has a couple other pieces included in it. We can talk more about that if we want to. And the other is our one piece of hardware, our wireless DEX solution, which spans the unattended retail space for vending, but also traditional grocery and convenience retail as well.
Okay. And then how does the key work? You plug into the basic DEX in the vending machine board, and then what does it do? Send a Bluetooth signal out, or?
Yeah, a couple there. When we first launched this device, we actually deployed it and left it inside of vending machines. So that when drivers would walk up to it, they would be able to Bluetooth connect to the device, to the machine, and automatically get that DEX file from it. Now it's a little bit more robust. It can be carried with the driver on their hip or on a key ring or a carabiner. And that's because it also found a home in the DSD and traditional grocery and convenience retail space as well. But because it's more robust, it can be carried and doesn't always have to be deployed in every single machine.
Yep. Okay, cool. And then how many years have you been in business now?
We have been in business since 2014. So we're coming up on the 11-year mark. September 4th will be 11 years officially as a company.
Yep. Awesome, man. You guys are doing it. I mean, most businesses go out of business within 10 years. I think 90% is the figure. So you've jumped over that mark. Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, it feels good. We have fellow entrepreneurs in Atlanta. You know, many have either moved on to other ventures and pursued other things. So we're glad to be around, but in this industry, I'd still say we're pretty early with many companies, technology and operators who are multi-generational family-owned businesses that are around for a long time.
Yep. Now, I know that you bump around the Atlanta startup community a lot, which we'll talk to in a minute. But hey, for the younger operators who are just coming into the space, go ahead and explain a little bit about what a VMS actually means, and then kind of what areas of the business you help people with.
Yeah, great point. VMS, it stands for vending management software or vending management solution, but when we adopted that terminology VMS, that's what we kind of learned was the most common way of referring to this piece of software being it's a back end operational management tool. So if you are a vending operator and you have vending machines out in the field at your customers or micro markets out in the field with your customers, so either section of unattended retail, this VMS is the only software you really need to run that type of operation. And I think there's for new operators especially, there are, I would say, more basic tools that you can use very early on to get the job done and make sure your customers are taken care of. But very quickly, as you grow to be, a dozen machines and start having those multiple accounts and need to hire your first route driver, I think the demands to have a quality VMS go a lot higher. The jump to get a VMS, I think, becomes much more in demand. But yeah, VMS has evolved from just being vending to include micro markets and include office coffee services, and it's become such a robust solution. But VMS is kind of the way to sum up.
That's the thing, right, about our industry, right? As a younger guy coming in, you might know things as different terminology, but you've had to adapt because our community is probably a little bit older community. Companies have been in business for 50 years.
Right.
And now, second generation, third generation is coming through. But, you kind of have to play in that little bit older generation first. Because they're the ones writing out the checks, right?
That's right. I mean, even sometimes the word unattended retail, I think we love that and know what it means, but sometimes you just say vending and people get it still faster when you just refer to the day when it was mostly just vending. Yeah.
What are some other features of your software that operators can learn a little bit about?
Yeah, I think there's kind of, when I kind of called it our VMS platform, and I think that's a good explanation. It's not just one application. It is one system that works together. But I kind of think of it in different workflows for the people in the operations. And I kind of see it as three major areas of people that run the unattended retail and traditional vending business. And that is people at the warehouse, in the physical warehouse, meaning the ones who would pick and load products onto trucks, receive products into the warehouse, in and out, maybe make orders for the warehouse as well. Then you have what we call the back office, which is kind of everyone else who's in the office who's not part of the warehouse. So this could be sales and marketing. This might be the owners. This would be managers, sometimes supervisors. And then you have the third part, which is the field. This would be route drivers, service technicians, basically those two roles within the operations. And those three combined, for Gimme, we have different apps for each of those roles within the business, but it all flows through one system. And basically we look at it as saying VMS is all of that. But I think maybe a key part of kind of who Gimme is when you think about the system that we have today, we started off riding on routes with route drivers and learning the route driver workflow to a T, and really built, we think, and we hear this from customers, the best possible experience for route drivers in the field. And because early on we integrated with other VMS platforms and other warehousing tools, but we just built that route driver mobile app experience, and it kind of makes the rest of the business flow in a way. The sales, the inventory values, those two really important factors are all driven by the inputs from the drivers in the field. And so one of our kind of phrases early on, and we still talk about it today, is good data in, good data out of reports in the VMS side of things. Bad data in from drivers, meaning miscounts, not getting decks and having to count everything in the machine, not seeing customers because of a timing issue, whatever it might be, just means that your reports are not as robust or are not as complete. Or there are more errors that someone in the back office has to go and fix the next time. So one key differentiator of Gimme compared to some of the other solutions is that focus on the route driver experience, kind of driving the rest of the VMS and the warehouse tools that we have today.
No, I love that. And if you can make it simple for those people who are out on the front lines, busting their butts,
Oh yeah.
carrying soda, lifting soda, doing this. If you can make the technology side of it easier, things will flow so much smoother if we can make that happen. Hey, quick story, GoGo Vending. GoGo Vending was a 7-route San Francisco operation, and they were one of the first companies to invest in VMS software. I forget the brand, but anyway, the ladies spent thousands of dollars buying that software, and the drivers refused to use it because they didn't want to be held accountable. And that's what Gimme's all about, right? Holding people accountable.
It absolutely is. I think that's there is the accountability piece, which is very, very, it's still top of mind in the industry today. Basically having a digital paper trail, right? For every movement, whether it's cash or cashless, changes, or it's inventory changes. That is something that our VMS tracks for the operator. They can always dig in to find why something happened, and it's a digital paper trail. And so theft for accountability, very, very important, especially with micro markets nowadays. It's obviously a big topic. But also the efficiencies you described. Some of the biggest benefits of going to Gimme or tech and adding tech is just the drastic leaps in efficiency. And I think you described one of the biggest ones in going from rolling warehouses with inventory, where you're having to manually go inside once, count everything, come back out, do it again. And we've helped operators transition from that to full pre-kitting in the warehouse. So the efficiency jumps are huge. And I think a lot of what we do today, and where, when we look at VMS, what is it doing is finding where there can be big efficiency jumps in other areas of the business. The pre-kitting is probably, one of the most obvious ones to make a huge impact for your drivers and, the warehouse staff. But, there are others as well. For example, like creating a purchase order for your vendor, and how, that could take 30 minutes to an hour per, for a long purchase order. It's like, man, if you're putting in 7 a week, that's a whole day of entering purchase orders. It's like, can we cut that down and, make that just a couple of minutes and be done with it? So there are a lot more areas we can help improve, and that's what we focus on.
In your experience over the years, have you taken operators that might be 10 routes or maybe 8 routes and move them down to 5 to 6 routes, and then reallocate the labor in some other areas of the business?
I think that's a really good way to look at what we've been able to help do. If anything, I think what we see even more of, though, and route efficiency is really important. But I think typically the operators we've found to be our best partnerships are typically growing. So it's kind of, I almost say it's hard to find, okay, they're usually adding more routes because they're getting more business. So obviously you could add more routes at a slower pace until you have to get the next route driver. That would be ideal. You could create the efficiencies for the current routes and then add more. But typically the metric I would say we've measured and been able to really show operators using Gimme where they're getting those efficiencies is the number of customers, number of stops they can go to in a day. And that being really like another metric to look at, because it's not just saying, oh, you get to the same 12 customers in a day faster and get home sooner. Sometimes that's the case. But typically with the businesses, it's saying you can actually see 20 of our customers now and make sure we don't miss any more sales from potential stockouts. You actually collect more cash sooner and from those machines and those micro markets. So, you're actually able to see lift in sales over the course of a year, just because you can get to more customers and have less missed sales because of it. So it's kind of a special metric that we like to look at as, number of stops per day.
Yes. To the younger generation coming through is get on technology early. Don't make all those mistakes of rolling around with, all sorts of products. Go in with technology as fast as you can. Would you agree with that philosophy?
I would definitely agree. I actually think it's, if you talk to any multi-generational operators starting today, they would probably agree, because the technology that is needed to run an operation is pretty well understood in 2025. Like, I think we all kind of understand what an unattended retail operation that matches the mold of a vending, micro market, and OCS company and smart cooler company.
Yeah.
We kind of know the mold of what technologies you want to be able to have, and so you could pretty easily write a playbook to a new
Yeah.
a new operator and say,
Yeah.
here are options, and this
Yeah.
is what you could have from the
Yeah.
start. Why
Love
waste
that.
your time?
Yeah. Hey, the whole premise of the Neil from New Zealand podcast is taking my 30 years of knowledge
Mm-hmm.
and then just bringing experts on like you, and then a
Oh,
lot
thank
of
you.
operators. And then the operators go through that journey of year one, account one, all the way through Bob from One Source, who we interviewed last week, who's up to 26 trucks now.
Woo.
Doing this thing. Yeah, but everyone made the same mistakes coming in.
Right.
One guy that I interviewed up in Boston blew 3 engines in cars because he was loading. He didn't invest in a rail truck. He had just thought, I'll buy a second-hand car, whip the back seat out, load it up with soda.
Yeah.
And it's just so many examples of funny things that have happened. But the bottom line is everyone wish they started with technology right from the very start.
Right.
So your technology is perfect. Hey, well, we're going to come back to Gimme in a minute, but let's go back in time. Where were you before you even jumped into this industry? What were you doing? And then what prompted you to fire up that entrepreneurship wagon? Because like we do, we tend to have ideas that drift around our head for years.
Right.
When did you pull the trigger to come in and give this a shot?
Yeah, this is a story I love to talk about, especially to, aspiring entrepreneurs or college age kids, which is the age I was when things got started with Gimme. So I was an electrical engineer at Georgia Tech, and this was 2012.
Okay.
And summer of 2012, I was working down at Gulfstream Aerospace in Savannah, Georgia.
Wow.
This was
cool.
an internship. Yes. Yep. And I lived in Savannah. I went to high school in Savannah. So Gulfstream was where I wanted to be. It's what I set my eyes on as soon as I moved down there. I moved actually after my freshman year in high school from Chicago. So I was already in my teens.
Is Gulfstream based in Savannah?
They are.
They are. Big, okay, cool. So you're looking at the big industry of
the big jets. That's right. That's right. So I would, my dad actually, like the story there in high school was my dad worked in Savannah about a year before the rest of the family moved down, just getting a house and things situated. And I would fly down to see him every once in a while. And I always was just taking in Savannah for whatever it was. And the big thing was always Gulfstream, because I would see the planes right by the airport, the Savannah airport, which is small. And so I learned more about this company. So I really set my sights on that, being strong in math. I was like, all right, engineering, gonna get into it, gonna work at Gulfstream. That was the plan. That was always the plan. And so I worked there, finally got the internship there. Perfect. Things are going really well. During that internship, I met Corey Hewitt, who ultimately became, spoilers, became my business partner. But I met him. And this is where I learned about entrepreneurship. So this was just the luck of being on the team with someone at Gulfstream. We worked in avionics, so cockpit electronics, and we worked in R&D. So we were working on the new electronics in the now announced G7s. And at the time, we couldn't, we had to sign paperwork to not say a word about the G7, which was fun. But we spent a lot of time working together. We spent a lot of time in airplane simulators together, learning how to fly the planes. We also spent a lot of time transitioning analog buttons to digital buttons on touchscreens. So one of our biggest projects was that specifically. It was working with human factors. It was working with test pilots to change what they're used to being able to touch and feel within the cockpit to all digital interfaces. And be able to navigate through menus and buttons and screens. So it kind of leans into a little bit of, more of what we started to do with kids, like early days. But I met Corey, and when I met him in 2012, a few years older than me, had probably started 5-ish businesses. These weren't massive businesses, but they were businesses. Yes. So I learned about this totally new path of thinking about work and money through the eyes of someone who was already an entrepreneur since middle school.
Yeah.
There's some stories of that, but he had bought and sold precious metals. He had a little bit dabbled in some real estate. He had a DJ business in high school where he would hire security for big high school parties and host and DJ for these big parties. But one of his businesses, probably the most consistent, was a vending operation.
Okay.
And he owned and operated about 30 machines in Peachtree City, Georgia, south of the airport. And that's where he went to high school. So I learned about his vending business as one of the entrepreneurial paths. And nothing really came of it that first summer. We closely became best friends over the next 2 years. We were at Georgia Tech together in Atlanta. We actually interned together back at Gulfstream the following summer in 2013. And then I was graduating in early 2014. So electrical engineer at Georgia Tech. So is Corey, also an electrical engineer at Georgia Tech. And I had accepted a full-time job at Gulfstream in spring 2014. So I was ready to move back to Savannah.
You were ready to go.
Ready to go. I knew what I was going to be doing at Gulfstream, and I was going to be back on the same team and all of that. And it was 2 weeks before graduation, an email came to every student at Georgia Tech, which was, if you have any business idea, it doesn't matter what stage of business you're in, we're launching a program called Startup Summer, and you can apply to get in. Here's what you need to apply.
That's very cool.
So random-ish opportunity. This was actually kind of looking back, it was the start of there being more entrepreneurial programs at Georgia Tech. So very cool time to be in college at Tech. And Corey called me, must have been 5 minutes later. He called me and he pitched me on the phone call. He pitched me the idea of building a technology platform to connect every vending machine in America. It was a big pitch. I didn't know what it really meant or what it looked like, and he didn't either. Yeah. But it was get rid of the handhelds. So you probably remember the handhelds, the bricks. He's like, the only thing I could use in my vending business were these old bricks with wired cords, stretchy cords. There's got to be a better solution than that to run larger vending businesses. Yeah. And I want to be able to do this from an iPhone where I can monitor my business and run my business from my phone. That's the goal here, and be able to do that. And he's like, I need to know an answer from you in 24 hours. So let's go get dinner tomorrow night. If you're in, you buy me a beer. If you're out, I'll buy you your beers.
Okay.
And that was the deal. But I had a day to figure it out. And it was because the deadline for the application, to apply was happening in 5 days or 3 days. And that day, I remember I called my dad, I called my family just to kind of talk through this opportunity. And I remember, I remember that there was a point, like a turning point in the conversation that was more about this being the best time to ever pull the trigger on a business, because there was essentially no risk. Yes, I would have to give up the job, but I would still graduate. I would still have the same degree that I was getting the job with.
Yeah.
And whether I was doing this 6 months, 12 months, 2 years later, if it failed, I would still be able to go back and get essentially the job I was going to have before. So it became super, we tried to make it seem less risky than it was. And so I got the support from my dad. I asked for kind of an arbitrary amount of time. I said, I need help for 14 months of funding to help me with, rent and a car payment at the time. And they agreed to that. So that's really what I needed to, and I had the support, from my parents to say.
Yeah. Now, was your dad entrepreneurial?
Yeah, my dad was. Okay. My mom always worked in retail, but my dad had multiple businesses. I still learn about these stories he has from growing up. But he's had a landscaping business, and he's had a pottery business, and he was a florist for a while. He has these sort of interesting entrepreneurial stories. So he's more of a craftsman and handyman. And I think he believed in that entrepreneurial spirit.
When his son comes up with an opportunity, he's like, yes, go for it. I love that. Hey, real quick before we keep expanding this, one is the fact that you were hanging out with Corey. who had that innovative spirit. That's the thing, right? You need to choose who you hang out with. Because if you hang out with someone depressing who just wants to go out and drink beers and do this, which is fun, and we kind of do that as well, hanging out with guys like Corey who just want to make it happen, I love that.
I credit so much of the early days, to your point.
Yeah.
I had no idea. I had no ideas. And I think I mentioned to you earlier in the interview, I didn't even really know the definition of entrepreneurship, honestly.
Yeah.
I don't think I had even thought of owning my own business. I just always was career focused and get a degree at a good school and get a job. Truly, that was, I don't even know what I considered doing for my own business. I don't think I had that idea. I don't think I had it in my brain. And you're absolutely right. I tell the story of picking a co-founder is so crucial in the early years, the early stages. But then to your point, also before picking a co-founder, you just sort of had to be in the right place to find a person like that. And we drank plenty of beer during those years. But he, like I said, the seed of the idea was all him, his experience as an entrepreneur, doing things and taking these small chances along the way. It just led to finding, new other opportunities to work with other skilled team members. And it's funny, I always say his time at Gulfstream, he always wanted to be an entrepreneur. So his time at Georgia Tech, which he never got a degree from, and at Gulfstream were pure recruiting plays to find other engineers and team members to build a business with. Like he spent the time and energy, and was trying to build a business, even though he was never going to work for Gulfstream full time.
Now, I've met you guys in Atlanta a couple of times at Buckhead. We've had a few beers, and I feel the energy, and I love it. And hey, you're building a platform that's addressing a need, but you've got the friendship that's similar to Greg and I from Zippius, the same thing, as we want to build something. So you're not only you're putting the brains into it, but you're building a passionate project for you. Hey, so with that being said, what did day one look like? And then what did week one look like? What do you do to start something like this?
Yeah. I will say it was so fortunate we did get into that Georgia Tech program.
Good. Yeah.
I think that was if you go to the week that we took to get into the program, even just building the idea, we didn't have any technology, any product built. We had a whiteboard in a room and locked ourselves in the room and just ideated on a name and a logo and a business case and research. And we just did all of that at Georgia Tech, in a room with a whiteboard. But
did you have any mentors guiding you as part of the program?
Yes. So that was where things really kicked off. I think the first thing was finding finding a potential co-founder, and there were two other guys with us at the time that were also engineers. And the four of us just put our brains together to come up with what we thought was a good idea based on Corey's experience. So the first thing that, to get to the problem that we were trying to solve was Corey's experience. He had firsthand operator experience, which is kind of the only reason we had a case at all. So thinking through how do you become an entrepreneur, usually you're solving your own problems or someone else's problems that you hear about from your friend or your friend's mom or whoever. It's a good way to learn about that experience, is having it firsthand. So we did that in a room, but we got into the program with a video. We had a creative video that pitched our product. So we showed ourselves on camera. We didn't do it, on a PowerPoint. It was so bad. And we have these videos too, and they are very, very bad, but it is funny to look back on because they're kind of cringy, but it allowed us to get in, to win and get into the program. But we did have mentors. This incubator at Georgia Tech gave us so much early heads up to tackle being an entrepreneur and being in a startup, because there were a few key lessons we learned, which was make decisions on a 10-year timeline, right? We wanted to have a great exit in 3 to 5 years. That's what tech companies were doing at the time.
Definitely.
But it wasn't realistic. It was if you're going to do this, you have to commit for the next 10 years. If you're not willing to do it, just get out now. Things like that. That's one that sticks with me. And so there were seasoned entrepreneurs in the room. There was a billionaire in the room that was just a down-to-earth Georgia Tech guy that had sold his business. So we had great early mentors, investors in Atlanta that we still keep up with today. They really put the right people at that Georgia Tech program to set us off on the right foot, and they have become very successful. That program is 11 years old now, and I go every year to the demo day. They have 300 companies go through the program now, versus the 8 that got in on our year. So it has grown quite a lot. And but we did have that early mentorship. And day one, the one other big takeaway early on was did not start building a product. We did hundreds of interviews before we started building a product. And the interviews, the discovery process, that whole summer, we did almost all discovery. 90% was just interviewing potential customers. We talked to people buying from vending machines at the mall, and we talked to people buying products at Sam's Club and Costco. We also found there were local operators, some big ones, Southern Refreshment Services being one of them in Atlanta, who we interviewed and talked with, and they were the ones that eventually told us there's going to be an app for this one day to get rid of our legacy handhelds. And we heard the same thing from Eagle Vending, and we heard the same thing from some other vending companies in Florida. We did a little bit of a road trip. And once we heard that there's going to be an app to replace these handhelds, we heard that 100 times. It was like, okay, we have to stop interviewing and we have to build the solution now.
Build prototype number 1.
That's right. Yeah. That's right. Yeah. So day one was very different. Yeah.
And so then how long was it before you actually had a pretty good working model? And then if I remember rightly, was Southern Refreshments your big stepping stone? Were they your first customer that said, hey, listen, let's figure this out together?
Yes, they were.
That's a big one because they are legends in our industry.
Yes, they have so much history. And Dan Hart, who unfortunately passed away a couple of years ago, such an influential part of our journey. And we credit a lot of our early success, obviously our success today, but especially in the early years to him, because he's a huge advocate for us as people and our team. And
I mean, I think that's why he had such a successful operation too, right? Is he had that same culture within his company.
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
That's great. Gosh, it sounds like just surrounding yourself with amazing people.
Yeah, I guess a lot of it is just that, sometimes one of the early phrases also on the build the 10 years is they called it GOOTB, GOOTB, get out of the building. So it was meant to say, go talk to your potential customers. And at the time, we were students. We didn't have anything to sell. We could just play the student card and just say, hey, we're here to learn about the vending industry. That's it. That is all we're here to do. And we sat in these rooms, and Dan Hart and Jimmy
Bryan?
Jimmy Bryan, yes. Jimmy Bryan, Dan Hart. They sat with us for hours and just talked to us about business, showed us the warehouse. And it was like we were just getting these tours of these businesses, and then we could find more businesses like them. And eventually we wanted to cash in our relationship with them, and because we had something to show. And so the timeline was, summer 2014. By December 2014, Southern Refreshments gave us a check to purchase hardware for their vending machines. And it was a small check, but it was enough for us to negotiate a deal with our manufacturer to say, please build these devices. We have a commitment from a customer, and let's get it rolling.
I know that's a feeling right there, right? When you get that first check.
Yeah.
Did you guys walk out and once you're out of the way of 100%. Walking, you're like, yes.
100%. It was like we took a picture of the check. I don't, covered up the name or whatever, and I think we still have it in our archives. Is like that check picture was huge, and obviously for me, Corey had seen this, several $1,000s before, right? As far as a payment, but I had never seen this before. So it was truly game changing. And the other thing to mention that Dan also helped provide to us was office space. And so along with the check, it was also you guys can work out of our spare warehouse, our spare office within the spare warehouse. So we brought the Gimme office to Southern Refreshment Services, and we worked out of their vending equipment warehouse for a year and a half, one full year. And we got to talk to vending drivers every single day. I rode on a route for 6 months until our product was ready to go live.
Yeah.
It gave us all of the access we would need. And I would say for any entrepreneur, if you were building a B2B product, if you could live with your first customer for a year to build out the product perfectly until it was ready to go, I would highly suggest that. I think it's unorthodox, but it worked so well. It was everything we needed early on.
Yep. Everything you were saying is why I fell in love with this industry too, because I was a manufacturer's sales rep to start. And it was Coca-Cola. The first 2 years, I looked after all the bottling companies in the Bay. And I'd go in and I'd sit in their warehouse and I'd talk about Coke and Diet Coke for about literally 10 seconds. And then it'd be like, tell me about your business. How did you start?
Yep.
A lot of them started just like you. They progressed up and built something big. So congratulations on.
Thank you very much.
On doing
you too.
It. Yeah, no, same thing, man, in reverse. I'm over here just learning as I go.
Yes.
And I've partnered with, Greg Alasaro, who's got an amazing, well, first of all, he's one of my best mates from high school. We played basketball.
Yeah, it's awesome.
But, he's got an amazing tech design brain. And then I bought the 30 years of vending experience. And we sat in this office for years and like you, drank lots of beers, trying to figure out what should we build? What could we build?
Right.
So we'll come back and talk about that. So so you started a relationship with Dan and the guys from Southern Refreshments, and then you grew that, you perfected the technology, and then when did you jump out to the next couple of customers?
Yeah, it was about a year later. So we visited NAMA in 2015. We did not exhibit, but at the end of 2015, we were about a year into living at the Southern Refreshments warehouse. We had the product to the place it needed to be, and we ended up moving out of the warehouse into a new office space to kind of get away from our initial thoughts and try to open up our mind to more operators and be out there. We exhibited at NAMA in 2016. And that was the starting point. That was where Dan and team were fully ready to help be a part of the Gimme team. An extension of the Gimme team brought, I think that was maybe our most impactful NAMA, honestly, in all the years. That first year, just having someone truly advocating on the show floor, bringing people to our booth. I think we closed several customers at NAMA on the show floor, where, leaving the show, we had already collected deposits and it was just following up with every operator beyond the show. So things started ramping much more quickly after that initial 2016 show. We did raise money along the way. So meanwhile, Corey was doing a lot of the selling, if you will, and I was doing a lot of the building, the development work, and the operating and deploying of the product. Corey was doing a lot of raising money. We needed money for our hardware in the early years. So we raised angel funds from angel investors. And then several years later, we had another round of funding, but we did have one, about $500,000 of funding after that first year. So honestly, the big kicker there was having a customer. A lot of raising money is much easier if you already have customers. It's so much easier to raise money. So that helped a lot.
Was Corey technical? Could he program a little bit, or that was you? Oh, he could a little.
He was also an electrical engineer, so we both had technical minds, but I would say the focus early on, it just became more, sales versus building. And actually pretty soon after that 2016 year, we were able to hire help to do the implementations on our team from NAMA, and I took over kind of the sales side while Corey was still looking to raise more money in future years, and actually became more building partnerships, which turned into actually a strategic partnership with USA Technologies at the time, a public company. So he was leading kind of these high level potential sales opportunities for Gimme, and I was kind of leading the one-to-one operator sales efforts and for those years.
Was there any thought as you're building this and having extreme success along the way, did you ever think there'd be a Gimme Gulfstream jet out there at somewhere down the road?
Somewhere down the road, that was the idea. I think going back to that decision that one year, I thought, I could work at Gulfstream my entire life and never own Gulfstream. Was kind of what I was like, this doesn't really make sense. I was like,
Yeah.
isn't the point to fly on it and enjoy
Yeah.
the, versus building it? So I
Yeah.
think that there was the flip in my head was, well, if I own a business,
Yeah.
then one day maybe
Yeah.
I could ever own a Gulfstream or at least fly on one.
Yeah. That's actually an
And
interesting question there is I wonder how many people who work for other people own Gulfstreams versus how many entrepreneurs own Gulfstreams.
it's I would I would almost say 100% must be entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
Like in my mind, Gulfstreams are
Yeah.
so expensive.
Yeah.
I don't know that, unless maybe you're,
Or like
you
a
know,
company like a Frito-Lay, the management team of
of
Frito-Lay,
course.
senior level, they might have a couple parked out at the, what
That's
is it,
right.
Dallas airstrip.
That's right. Yes, exactly. You're
Okay,
right.
cool.
High
So,
level.
all right. So it's somewhere along the stage though, you and Corey you took over the CEO of the company and Corey moved on. And is he more of a consultant now coming back to you guys?
Somewhat like that. Yeah, I would say to kind of get there, around that 2017, 2018 mark, we actually raised another round of funding. And this was to build what is now today what we sell with VMS. So I mentioned we started with the Route Driver mobile app and hardware. We still have that solution today, but we have the entire back end VMS as well. And we actually start by selling in that core solution because it's so fundamental for operations. The Route Driver experience is still there, but it's part of the overall solution. And we need money to build that product out. And honestly, I think if you kind of look at the journey to get to where Corey stepped away and I took over the role, it was in 2023 is when that happened. So from 2018 to 2023, we really were building Gimme VMS, which took several years to kind of get to a core competency of the product because of how complex VMS really is when you think about all of the parts of the business that it has to do and do well. Fortunately, we had some amazing beta customers that became our first VMS customers to transition from legacy systems to Gimme. They were fundamental in the success of the product. And we really just put all of our energy on getting them deployed well. And once they were all deployed by about that 2023 time, plus some other independent companies along the way, our strategy became less focused on managing the development of this product and more about growth in partnerships again. And I think the timing, is very mutual change for us. I think there was also a critical moment for a lot of technology companies in 2022 around those COVID years. The effects of COVID were affecting, I think, most tech companies, having to make decisions on, do you raise a lot more money in a time that is extremely hard to raise money to keep growing and keep going? Or do you start cutting back a bit and actually become more lean and more like focused on what you do well? And we kind of went that direction around that time as well. So this was part of that overall plan to say, let's become a lean and profitable company to keep this going for many years into the future. And along with that change, now again focused on these strategic partnerships and growth of the product, I think it just became a natural opportunity for Corey to step away and continue to do big things, and for me to take over and leverage my relationships in the industry to talk to companies like Zippy Assist and several other integration partners to keep the business growing.
Love that. Hey, real quick, we're going to move on to another section real quick, but just in a little, what I've heard, you guys had the technical expertise with the electrical engineering degrees, but the passion, the energy, the partnerships and all that is really what accelerates that, right? And it sounds like you guys have got that, and having the key partnerships of Southern Refreshments. Wow, what a huge win.
Yeah, 100%. I think actually the technical expertise from the founders, if you will, early on, one of the other just great, very fortunate moves we were able to make was getting help from a development company, a development partner who was just as invested in, I would say even in some ways, more obsessed with problem solving than even Corey and I were as founders. This development team, they are a team. They are overseas. We met them through many interviews with lots of different development businesses, but they showed us commitment to our solution in a way we just didn't expect from anyone that was kind of looking for
another win.
for a gig.
That is another win, because if you had the
Yeah.
opposite to that, you
Yeah,
probably would have spent twice as much money and took twice as long.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, this was a team. We may had some really strict criteria of who we wanted to work with, and we
Yeah.
followed that criteria. We didn't deviate from it. We said we want to talk to developers who are a firm, not a freelancer, like not a solo developer, but a firm with a business. We
Yep.
want to, they should be able to communicate in very clear English, just so we don't have miscommunications in this highly technical development project.
Yeah.
And they needed specific experience with Bluetooth Low Energy connecting to iOS devices, iPads and iPhones. And this team had it all. They were one of the very few. But they showed us, I forget exactly what they did. I'd have to look back, maybe at some of the photos that we have along the way, but
Yeah.
they came back to us with an MVP of a product, of a solution at no cost. It was just out of pure passion and energy that they said, we like you guys, we like your industry. This is intriguing and very interesting. We
Yeah.
want to build for this industry and this problem. Like, let's please partner up. And we were just like, wow, this is the best thing we could ask for. We still work with that team today. And we've essentially worked with the other co-founders as extended co-founders of Gimme in a lot of ways.
Yeah. Okay.
Because they're committed to the mission. And
Yeah.
And so to your point, our engineering chops, we used them for a little bit in the early days to get us off the ground and get our MVP. But as soon as I could get out of developing myself, I had to pass it off because I didn't have the expert skills Gimme really needed.
Yeah.
But the team did. And so they brought the expertise there. And then Corey and I could just talk about our vision and our passion.
Yeah. And you had the actual electrical engineering and angle. You can keep an eye
Yes.
on the development. It wasn't,
Yes.
that was great. All right.
Yep.
Fast forward, here we are, 2025. Your product's going well. Obviously, you heard about the news of the big guys, Cantaloupe, getting bought by 365, and now they've got this mammoth solution. Where does Gimme fit into the marketplace? What is some value propositions that you bring to the table over the big guys?
Yeah, this is obviously a hot topic right now.
Yeah.
And the way I kind of look at it, just positioning in the industry especially, is 10 years ago when we launched into the industry, you could see a lot more technology companies in three distinct areas. And that would be cashless devices for vending machines, typically, kiosks for micro markets, and VMS/other software solutions. But let's just call it VMS. And there were a lot of companies in each of these categories, actually, that were cooperating through integrations, following NAMA VDI standards. That's why we had them, so that we could integrate and benefit the mutual customers that we had. And there were multiple players in each of these categories. And over time, especially in the last 5 years, where we've seen acquisitions and mergers between kiosk to kiosk companies, cashless to cashless companies, VMS to VMS companies, then VMS to cashless, plus another kiosk, and the VMS to cashless, or the kiosk to VMS, and then added cashless. So you can see where the number of options over time has shrunk quite a bit, actually, and now it continues to. And both, it's interesting because both 365 and Cantaloupe actually had the trifecta of solutions between cashless, kiosk, and VMS separately. They both had some solutions for each of those. I do see ways they could complement each other well, so we'll have to see how it all shakes out. But for Gimme, we are one of the now only independent VMS companies. If you looked at that trifecta of technologies, we do not sell cashless devices, we don't sell kiosk devices. So we sell the VMS. We sell the core fundamental business software to the unattended retail operators. And today we're one of the few that only sell that product. We don't bundle it today with any cashless. We don't bundle it with a kiosk. We have integrations with major kiosk and cashless providers, so we can always be a viable option for 99% of operators. But that's where we fit today is really one of the very few VMS specific companies. And it's why we think we have such a helpful solution in that area more than anything.
I love that. I love the fact that you can integrate, because that's one of the things we've found at Zippy Assist is where are the quick and simple integrations? Because operators have a lot more tools going on than just
Yes.
what our industry, a lot of them connect over to Salesforce.com, QuickBase, Zendesk, and all these softwares are modern. And Zippy, like you guys, we are able to plug in anywhere.
Yep.
We just want our thing to fit in. So what about customer support? I think, my philosophy is if a vending / micro market smart cooler guy goes out and puts all this effort into winning an account, so that's got 250 people, the last thing they need is their technology to let them down to where no one can use the stuff. So that support angle it's going to break. It's a machine. It's going to need tweaking.
Fair enough.
Where do you guys fit in terms of support? Because I know that's a big word.
Yeah, it is. Support has, from the very beginning, been fundamental to who Gimme is. And in a lot of ways, it is actually the thing that our customers may talk about the most of what they get from Gimme. Like, yes, we build the VMS solution. Yes, everyone in their operation touches our software because it's their daily application. But I think what they talk about most is when they do need to reach out to us, either for solving an issue or something they're even just investigating in their business. We respond as because of our size and the attention we can give, the VIP like service and white glove service we can give to our customers. It's, I think, unlike anyone else they communicate with in the industry when they talk to Gimme. And it is truly you asked what our special sauce was. And I truly believe our support is our special sauce.
We feel the same way with Zippy. We want
that's great.
The secret sauce. We want support. In fact, anything I've ever done, I basically went out, no contracts other than 30 days. Let's talk, let's communicate, and let's figure it out win-win.
Yes.
Sounds like you guys are right in the same department.
100%. I mean, I heard we have cell phones and our customers have our cell phone numbers. And I think that is, at some scale, I understand some of that may not be sustainable at some scale. Right. But at our scale today and how we want to treat customers, it is that way. It is if you needed to give us a call, we would be there for it.
Yeah, no, I agree. And Cantaloupe and 365, they're similar stories, right? Joe
absolutely.
Started out of a garage. He built 365 and kind of came up and here's his story. And then Cantaloupe with Mandeep and Anant sort of jumped in and did their thing. And then it went to USAT and then back to Cantaloupe and bomb. But, like we said at the start of this thing, it's just this wonderful, humongous industry. I think we went past 40 billion in aggregated revenues now, and we're all part of it. So what does the next 5 years look like for you guys?
Yeah, that's always a fun question. I think right now I see us at an important and exciting inflection point for Gimme VMS. I mentioned for those 5 years, 2018 to 2023, and the last few, it's in a way our heads have been down on improving the product day in, day out, improving the product for our current customers. I think we're at a place now where it's really time to reintroduce Gimme as the premier VMS company to the industry, and get more people to know about this product, especially in light of some of the news. Having great options that some people just aren't aware of today because maybe we have had our heads down, and it's really time for us to get back out there. So when we talk about the next 5 years, a lot of our mind is on VMS growth. One thing we didn't talk a lot about today, though, and I think it's worth mentioning, is our entry into that traditional grocery and convenience space. This has been over the last 5 years. So along that time that we've had our heads down on VMS, this industry has grown tremendously for us. And we've sold, there are tens of thousands of routes from big names like Campbell's, Red Bull, Bimbo, that are using our device in that traditional DSD industry. So I think there's kind of two parts. I think the first is VMS growth and the number of operators we will be able to help over the next 5 years being a huge part of that. And with a focus on some of the larger vending groups, I would say.
Mhm.
We know there are many of our customers are canteen franchises. We're familiar with the Global Connect groups.
Yeah.
There are also bottlers as part of this, and I think those are the areas we'll be able to grow really well in.
Yeah.
And then on the DSD side, I think that's more of a, there are a few options and directions we could go in the grocery and convenience space,
Yeah.
but I think the groundwork I'm working on specifically on laying with some of these partnerships in our current industry, I think some of those could lead to some exciting DSD solutions as well. And
Yep.
so I think we'll continue to see kind of both parts of Gimme grow in different ways, different meaningful ways. But all eyes now are on talking to more operators and letting them know that they have this option with
Yep.
amazing support,
Yep.
fantastic software to help them run their business and become more efficient.
Yep.
And it's just time to get the word out.
I love it. And one of the cool things you mentioned, integrations. We're a big integrator. Gimme and Zippy integrate seamlessly.
Yep.
At the start of the show, you mentioned 3 categories that you focus in on. What was it? It was the route guy, or out in the field, the warehouse, back office, field.
Yes.
And where Zippy slots in is over here, the customers buying out of the machines.
100%.
So we too, like you guys, saw kind of a gap, jumped in, and like you, that I love is you're wide open for integrations.
Yes.
And support.
Yes.
I think that's going to be the winning formula.
I think if you can get to your point, you put together a couple of tech providers that cover each of those areas really well, and you can kind of get best of breed in each of those categories. And man, you can, as an owner operator, I would feel so confident in being able to just focus on my business and be operating the business that if technology failed on you at all, you're going to be back up and running in no time. It's got to give, I think between you and I think like if we can give our operators confidence, they're going to feel great about growing their business.
Yeah, and the really good thing too is all this positive energy doing this, it's going to sharpen up the whole industry because everyone's got to be on their toes.
That's right.
And keep innovating or they will lose.
That's right.
So I think the industry is going to benefit. Well, Evan, I really appreciate you jumping on here.
Oh, likewise.
An absolute cool story. And congratulations on your success and keep blazing away, man.
Thank you very much, Neil. It's always a pleasure.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
All right. See ya.
That was a cool story. Thanks, Evan. What a wonderful journey that you and Corey jumped into. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is what the Neil from New Zealand show is all about. We're going to bounce around this industry and share everyone's super cool entrepreneurial story. Thanks a lot. Keep an eye on us.